Yeah, there's not, it started
Some of the
late.
more northern towns would be Lowell and Billerica, and it goes all the way down to Canton and Stoughton.
Thank you, Lucy.
The trooper on call for that 24-hour period covers that entire region.
So this is Sergeant Zachary Clark. That's who we're starting with after the niece and nephew.
Now, sir, were you working with the State Police Crime Scene Services section on February 1st, 2022?
Yes, I was.
And where were you requested to go on that date?
I was requested to respond to the Canton Police Headquarters.
And approximately what time did you arrive at the Canton Police Department?
Approximately 9 in the morning.
And who did you meet upon your arrival there?
I was met by the requesting officer, Michael Proctor.
Thank you for the
And
follow.
what was the purpose, or what was described to you initially as the purpose of you responding to that location?
The request was made for me to assist in documenting a search warrant that was being executed on a vehicle housed at the police department.
And who do you recall being present during your time at the Canton Police Department and during that search warrant execution?
Trooper Proctor was present. There was a forensic scientist from the crime lab, Maureen Hartnett. There were various members of the Canton Police Department. There were members of the State Police Crash Reconstruction Section, Trooper Joe Paul, to name one. There were members of the Norfolk SPDU as well.
And if you know, in addition to Michael Proctor, how many other members of the Norfolk SPDU were present during the search warrant?
I'm aware of at least 3.
And what was it that you were asked to document at that location?
Namely, it was Karen Reed's vehicle.
And where was that vehicle located within the Canton Police Department?
It was in the garage bay.
Now, can you describe for the jury the process of your documentation or memorialization of that vehicle that morning?
Yes. Typically, upon arrival, I would consult with the requesting officer to determine the scope of the search warrant. In that case, it was Michael Proctor. He described that the vehicle was being searched for a variety of things.
We got our flash goal, so if you haven't sent your heart me's, we need 30 heart me's from 30 totally different people that haven't already sent their heart me's.
Include
This
biological
should be an
evidence,
easy one.
communication devices,
Thank
alcohol
you.
containers, receipts, infotainment center data, etc. He asked me to document the vehicle with digital photographs. I then consulted with the forensic scientist who was present as well to determine the order in which the vehicle would be documented and processed.
Thank you.
I began by documenting the vehicle's exterior with photographs prior to any manipulation.
If we get this one knocked out, this will be our 13th flash goal that we did, that we successfully knocked out of the park.
Or movement, and then proceeded to document the interior and its contents.
Now, any items that were seized during the execution of that search warrant, how were they photographed prior to being seized?
They're photographed in place prior to being moved.
Now, what kind of instruments or tools do you use typically while photographing items for crime scene services?
If you guys are just coming in, we do have a flash goal that started. We need, I believe it's 19 more heart me's. It's 1 coin from 19 different people. It has to be the heart me ones. And we'll knock this out of the park. It will be flash goal number 13 achieved.
The main piece of equipment we would use is a digital camera. We wear protective equipment, namely gloves and a mask typically,
Thank you for the follow, Amber.
often a scale, so that the images can be calibrated to true size upon examination later. Sometimes placards or ruler tape replaced on items of interest or items that will be collected.
Now, on this occasion, you mentioned Maureen Hartnett from the crime lab was present there as well.
That's correct, sir.
And what did you observe her doing as far as any sort of documentation with relation to certain things or items or areas of the vehicle?
My recollection is that she was chiefly concerned with the exterior of the vehicle, namely the rear right corner, and she was looking for DNA and trace evidence, I believe.
If you guys could do me a favor while we're listening and tap this side of the screen, this side, my side, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you guys are just coming in, send your heart me's. We need 19 more.
And as far as was there any delineation that you saw her place on the vehicle with respect to certain areas of the vehicle?
Hey,
Yes,
how are you?
she marked various
you,
locations on the
gentlemen.
vehicle with root blue tape.
And is that something that you would photograph
Zoe.
both prior to and afterward when she would place those stickers or labels
Thanks,
on the vehicle?
Kathy.
The area would be documented during my overall photographs prior to her placing any placards or ruler tape. And then once those
Thank you.
placards are placed, they
15
would be
more
photographed
guys.
again.
Now, in addition
We've got 82 people. We just need just that little bit more.
to the photographs, what else did you do with respect to the vehicle?
I was also asked to process the front right passenger compartment of the vehicle for friction ridge impressions.
Now, what is a friction ridge impression?
A friction ridge impression is it's a replica or an impression of the friction ridge skin on the hands or the feet. Friction ridge skin is an evolutionary adaptation on human beings that allow for better grasp of objects.
Good morning, Sharon. How are you? Guys, if you're just coming in, I need 15 more heart me's for our flash goal. Just one coin. 88 of us.
What makes it unique and significant to policing is that that friction ridge skin has unique patterns. They're formed through ridges and furrows or hills and valleys.
I'll tell
they're
you when
unique
it
to
comes
every
back
individual.
up again. Thank
In the
you,
hundreds of years that
Rhonda.
fingerprints have been studied, no two individuals have ever been determined to have the same fingerprints.
13 more.
Analysts are trained to examine these patterns, more importantly, the individual ridge events, and conduct examinations that can lead to identifications or exclusions.
Now, just briefly, can
Good afternoon, Kathy. How are you? Guys, we're on a flash goal. We just need a few more heart me's.
you describe for the
you.
jury that process of how you do that?
Thank you, Joe.
I would document the vehicle with photographs first, and
I'm
then
doing okay,
determine
thank you.
what medium would be used to process the vehicle. In this case, white fingerprint powder was selected. The particular area processed
much
was
time do
relatively
we
small. It was the front passenger
Yeah, I
compartment.
sent mine from my
Interior
back.
and exterior, I focused on surfaces that were more conducive to friction ridge
Thank you,
impressions.
Juror 5.
Certain surfaces,
We only need 11 more. I really want us to get to that 13. So if any of you 93 in here could send one heart me, it would be greatly appreciated.
are far more conducive than
Kathy.
others. Typically, non-porous surfaces like glass, polished metal, dash surfaces are better for impressions, are more likely to yield impressions than porous surfaces, which is items like
Thank you,
Paper.
Icky.
unfinished wood.
10 more. We're almost
The area
there.
was processed with white fingerprint powder, examined, and no impressions of value
Thank you,
were
Rich.
determined to be
I
present.
appreciate it.
Now, just briefly,
Thank
Trooper
you,
Clark,
always
when you
happy. I
say
appreciate
no impressions of value were determined,
8 more.
can you explain to the jury a little more,
Thank you.
expound upon what that means?
Analysts are trained to determine during the analysis phase if an impression is of value for comparison. What that means is whether or not the impression, if any, has enough quantitative and qualitative detail where it could be compared to a known impression or an exemplar and make a finding. In this case,
We have 8
there were no
minutes.
usable impressions.
Now, upon that initial documenting of the vehicle, were you asked to go anywhere else?
Yes, I was also requested to respond to 34 Fairview Road in Canton and take overall photographs of a scene.
And when you say overall photographs, can you describe to the jury what your understanding of that term is?
We could totally knock this out of the park. We only need a few more, guys. A few more heart me's. If you haven't sent one, thank you so much. We're almost there. I really want to get this number 13 knocked out.
Overall photographs are essentially just like they sound. They're typically taken from a distance.
Thank you so much, Rich. I appreciate it.
They're not examination level photographs.
Thank you,
They're
Reggie.
general area photographs. This particular case, it was an outdoor scene. I was directed where to focus my attention, and I took a series of photographs of that area.
Now, did anyone go with you there?
Not that I recall.
And when you say your your attention was directed to certain areas, where was your
5
attention
more.
focused?
The requesting officer explained that upon my arrival, I would see an area in the front lawn.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I greatly appreciate it. Guys, can we get 5 more heart me's? I really want to knock this goal out. Thank you, BJ. Thank you, Robbie.
On or close to the street at that address where
3 more.
a significant amount of snow had been partially cleared away
Thank you,
near
Laura
a
Jo.
flagpole. He asked that I take overall photographs of that area, given the lighting was
Thank you,
preferable, and to focus on the front of the residence,
more.
that cleared area, and the street around it.
Just one.
And Trooper Clark, what do you recall in reference to the snow accumulation on the area of the lawn near the flagpole at 34 Fairview Road on that date of February 1st?
Thank you, Angie.
My recollection is that there was a significant amount of snow present.
Who will get the final rose? It's like we're on The Bachelor.
Snowbanks were apparent from what I presume to be plowing.
How
There
are
was
you,
an area
Pat?
that did appear to be cleared and heavily trodden by footwear and tires.
Just one.
Still, even in that area, there was a significant amount of snow with certain spots of grass showing.
Thank you. We did it. That's
Now,
number
while you were there,
13.
sir, did you or anyone else do any sort of excavation of that front lawn area?
No.
Thank you so much. We did it. I'm so
Now,
happy.
following that, where did you go?
I returned to the
Guys,
Canton Police
Thank you so
Department.
much.
And
Thank
why
you,
did you
JJ.
return to the Canton Police Department at that point?
I had finished my assignment with 34 Fairview, and I was asked to return. I believe the forensic scientist was continuing to process the vehicle. At that time, I would re-encounter her and determine if there was any additional photographs required.
Thank you, Mama Bear.
Now, in addition to the photographs that you took initially at the Canton Police Department, what else did you memorialize with reference to the vehicle that day?
Thank you, Kathy.
They took general photographs of the vehicle, the contents. At one point, a bag
Mila, stop trying to close the office door. It's true crime time and you know it.
was presented to me with evidence by one of the Canton officers.
Thank you.
Let me ask it this way, sir. At some point, you mentioned there was a reconstruction trooper who was present at the Canton Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
And so what, if anything, did you document with respect to that reconstruction trooper outside of the Canton Police Department?
Thank you.
Trooper Joe Paul asked while I was there to document a series of brake and acceleration tests with digital video that he was performing with the same vehicle. I was also asked to take photographs and video of the vehicle.
I had said his name and I cannot remember what it is. I'm waiting to see if they're going to pop it back up.
Vehicle's backup warning system, which was activated as they performed some tests.
Did anybody catch when I said what this guy's name was? One of the other channels that keeps the name on the
Your Honor, may I
bottom.
approach?
Yes.
Okay.
This is
I was
Zachary,
requested to respond to the Canton
Clark.
Police Headquarters.
Sergeant Zachary Clark.
From a distance. They're not examination level photographs. They're
You're
general
welcome.
area photographs. This particular case, it was an outdoor scene. I was directed where to focus my attention, and I took a series of photographs of that area.
Now, did anyone go with you there?
Not that I recall.
And when you say your area, your attention was directed to certain areas, where was your attention focused?
The requesting officer explained that upon my arrival, I would see an area in the front lawn or close to the street at that address where a significant amount of snow had been partially cleared away near a flagpole. He asked that I take overall photographs of that area, given the lighting was preferable, and to focus on the front of the residence, that cleared area, and the street around it.
And Trooper Clark, what do you recall in reference to the snow accumulation on the area of the lawn near the flagpole at 34 Fairview Road on that date of February 1st?
My recollection is that there was a significant amount of snow present.
Ooh, thank you,
Snowbanks were apparent from what I presume to be plowing. There was an area that did appear to be cleared and heavily trodden by footwear and tires. Still, even in that area, there was a significant amount of snow with certain spots of grass showing.
Can't forget evidence.
Now, while you were there, sir, did you or anyone else do any sort of excavation of that front lawn area?
No.
Now, following that, where did you go?
I returned to the Canton Police Department.
And why did you return to the Canton Police Department at that point?
I had finished my assignment with 34 Fairview, and I was asked to return. I believe the forensic scientist was continuing to process the vehicle. At that time, I would re-encounter her and determine if there was any additional photographs required.
Now, in addition to the photographs that you took initially at the Canton Police Department, what else did you memorialize with reference to the vehicle that day?
They took general photographs of the vehicle,
you so
the
much,
contents.
Heather.
At one point, a bag was presented to me with evidence by one of the Canton officers.
Let me ask it this way, sir. At some point, you mentioned there was a reconstruction trooper who was present at the Canton Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
And so what, if anything, did you document with respect to that reconstruction trooper outside of the Canton Police Department?
Trooper Joe Paul asked while I was there to document a series of brake and acceleration tests with digital video that he was performing with the same vehicle. I was also asked to take photographs and video of the vehicle's backup warning system, which was activated as they performed some tests.
Thank you, Mama Bear. Thank you, Captain. You guys are just knocking these goals out today.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Clark, you have a desk. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
Or what do you recognize that to be?
this is the crime scene photos.
And what's contained on that disc, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed both inside and outside the Canton Police Department with respect to Ms. Reed's vehicle, as well as the scene at 34 Fairview on February 1st?
I presume it is.
All right, almost seek to introduce in the minutes of next exhibit.
I'm assuming that that's all that's on the disc, and if that's the case, then we have no objection.
You've seen it.
I haven't seen that particular disc. We have received the photos in discovery. I'm not concerned about that.
Okay. All right, that'll come in.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Exhibit 133.
Thank you, Heather. That one's funny.
May I have one moment?
Yes.
Makes you think of John O'Keefe shoot, don't it?
Your Honor, with the court's permission, if I could just publish a few of those photos for the jury.
That one was beautiful. Thank you, Catnip.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Weren't they
Sorry, Your Honor,
mismatched
may I
too?
approach the witness just
Yes.
briefly? Your Honor, I'm presenting you with three photographs. Do you recognize
She doesn't-
what's depicted in each of those?
I'm guessing that she had a flare up with her MS. She does not look good. She still doesn't look good.
Three photographs.
Very pale.
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize depicted in each of those three photographs in general?
I would describe these as a mid-range and a close-up photograph of the vehicle's dash area.
And Your Honor, separately, may I call to seek to introduce in the minutes the next three exhibits?
All right, I'd like to do it as one exhibit.
ABC.
Please.
Alicia, I hate to do this, but you're going to need to Google it because we're live right now. I can't look it up for you. I know. I thought she meant the definition of it.
134A through 134C.
I can't explain it all right now.
And my apologies, Your Honor.
Thank
With
you,
the court's
Vince.
permission, may I now publish some of those photos?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 2616.
There was an illness, and I'm assuming it was Karen. She's not feeling well today, so you could see it. She ran out of the courtroom this morning.
And Ms.
She
Gilman,
walked
if I could
quickly.
ask you to zoom in on the steering wheel just above the L for the Lexus sign. And Sergeant Clark, do you see what's depicted up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
And from this photograph, just above the steering wheel on the right-hand side, what do you observe there?
Vehicle's odometer reading?
And is that what the odometer read as far as when you took this photograph outside of the Canton Police Station on February 1st?
Yes, it is.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 2617. And again, Ms. Gilman, if you could just zoom in a little on the center of that photograph. And again, Sergeant, if you could describe for the jury what we're looking at in this photograph.
This is a mid-range photograph of the vehicle's display screen, the center console, with what I would describe as the backup warning system activated as the vehicle approaches a pedestrian.
And lastly, Ms. Gilman, the next photograph, which is 2618.
Would Karen's vehicle have told her?
And again, Sergeant, what are we looking at in this photograph?
More or less the same as the last photograph, sir.
Closer up image than the prior photograph, is that correct?
That's correct.
I don't know if you guys have it to where you back up and your car gives you an alert. We do. It gives a big exclamation mark, the caution sign, on our dashboard, and it dings. So did Karen's vehicle have that?
Thank you. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Thank you, sir.
You guys
I have nothing
speak
further
too.
for this witness round.
All right. Mr. Giannetti?
Thank you, Your Honor.
It sure is pricey.
Good morning, Trooper.
Good morning, sir.
Your earliest involvement in this case was on February 1st of 2022.
That's correct.
You ended up, and by the way, at that time, you were a trooper assigned to the Crime Scene Services section,
That's correct.
and that was in which town in Massachusetts?
Where I was assigned, sir?
Yes,
Maynard.
Maynard, okay. About a year later, you actually joined the Norfolk CPAC unit or the Norfolk Detectives Unit, correct?
That's correct.
And when you joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, Lieutenant Brian Tully was the supervisor of that unit, was he not?
Yes, he was.
You are still with that unit, correct?
That's correct.
So you've been there for approximately 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years.
That's correct.
And so you were there when Lieutenant Tully was removed as the supervisor of that unit, correct?
That's sustained, and folks should to disregard that.
If I could request an instruction.
Jurors, pay no attention to that question or answer. That is not properly before you with this witness.
Is Lieutenant Tully still the supervisor of that unit?
Yes.
I'm going to see you at sidebar for just a minute, please.
I think he knew exactly what he was doing there. Keep in mind, though, the prosecutor had objected before Bev said sidebar. But this is our, I don't even know if we should count the earlier ones, but yeah. This is like our third sidebar of the day.
I did not know that.
Wait, hold on. They were at sidebar. I skip it ahead. When I can, anyways.
Okay, so going back to February 1st of 2022, you learned that Michael Proctor had called your unit, resulting in your involvement in this case on that date, correct?
That's right.
And Michael Proctor had requested that you go to the Canton Police Station.
That's correct.
At the time, were you aware that the Canton Police Station, or the Canton Police Department, I should say, had a conflict of interest with this investigation?
Objection.
Rephrase
She
it.
does, Tammy. I agree.
Rephrase it.
Well, were you aware, when you were called out on this case, that John O'Keefe had been found mortally wounded on Brian Albert's lawn?
I was advised of that fact upon my arrival.
Okay. And you were you advised of the fact that Brian Albert's brother was a Canton police detective?
I did not know that.
All right. Still, it was the Canton Police Station and not a state police barracks where Michael Proctor instructed you to go, correct?
That's right.
Was he there before you, or did you arrive there before him?
He was there before me.
When you got there, where did you see Michael Proctor within the Canton Police Department?
Inside the garage bay.
And is that also called a sally port?
Yes.
And when you got there, was Michael Proctor the one to direct you to the Lexus SUV?
Yes.
And when you got there on February 1st, that was the first time that you laid eyes on that vehicle, correct?
Yes, it is.
There was no other investigator from the State Police Detectives Unit or the CPAC unit there with the Lexus SUV except for Michael Proctor, correct?
There were other investigators from the Norfolk District Attorney's Office present that morning.
In any case, you had no personal knowledge prior to your arrival of how long Michael Proctor had been with that SUV before you got there, correct?
That's right.
You have no personal knowledge about whether anyone was monitoring Michael Proctor while he was near the vehicle before you got there.
That's correct.
And before you got there, you had no idea how much access Michael Proctor had to that vehicle, right?
Correct.
Your assignment was to take photographs and to process the passenger's compartment in particular for fingerprints.
Correct.
And you did that.
Yes, I did.
Bless you. About a year and a half after that, on July
I don't think we'll be able to track the coughs today. It seems like everybody's coughing and sneezing in there today.
18th of 2023, you participated in this investigation again, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And that was because, in part, you had now joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, correct?
Correct.
And you participated in an interview of Colin Albert at the Norfolk DA's office, right?
That's right.
You knew at the time that Colin Albert was the nephew of the homeowner, Brian Albert?
Objection.
It's very tiny.
I'll allow that. Did
The
you know
smallest
that
I've
at the
seen.
time?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. At the time that you were called in for this interview and told that you would be participating in an interview of Colin Albert, you knew that he was Brian Albert's nephew, correct?
I was advised that prior to the interview, yes.
You conducted that interview along with Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
At the time, Michael Proctor was a state trooper in that unit, correct?
Yes, he was.
And you knew he was also the lead investigator on the case, correct?
He was the case officer, yes.
My understanding was it was the judge that said to rephrase. Did I mishear something? Hi, Kath. How are you?
At the time of that interview on July 18th, before you began questioning of Colin Albert,
Thank you.
had Michael Proctor revealed to you his connections with the Albert family?
Sustained.
Will you approach?
Yeah, definitely approach, because why the hell would you sustain that?
Did Michael Proctor reveal to you that he and
Sidebar denied.
Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his cruiser?
Sustained, and jurors, I'm going to ask you to strike that question, disregard.
I need to be heard at sidebar.
Yes, you do.
Hear you.
Holy shit. I gotta roll that back to hear that one more time.
For that, on July 18th of 2023, you participated in this investigation again, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And that was because, in
Right,
part,
Samantha?
you had now joined the Norfolk CPAC unit, correct?
Correct.
And you participated in an interview of Colin Albert at the Norfolk DA's office, right?
That's right.
You knew at the time that Colin Albert was the nephew of the homeowner, Brian Albert?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Did you know that at the time?
Could you rephrase the question?
Sure. At the time that you were called in for this interview and told that you would be participating in an interview of Colin Albert, you knew that he was Brian Albert's nephew, correct?
I was advised that prior to the interview, yes.
You conducted that interview along with Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
At the time, Michael Proctor was a state trooper in that unit, correct?
Yes, he was.
And you knew he was also the lead investigator on the case, correct?
He was the case officer, yes.
I think so, but they could do that on when it's their case too. They can subpoena them.
At the time of that interview on July 18th, before you began questioning of Colin Albert, had Michael Proctor revealed to you his connections with the Albert family?
Me either, Jamie.
When you
It's
approach,
weird.
Go on to the next area and see if you can come back.
did Michael Proctor reveal to you that he and Kevin Albert had socialized together by drinking alcohol in his cruiser?
Sustained in jurors, I'm going to ask you to strike that question, disregard.
I need to be heard at sidebar.
So when they're doing an investigation, because a police officer was found deceased on the front lawn, the homeowner's brother is drinking in the police cruiser with Proctor? Thank you, Nita. How are you? Let's see how long this one goes for. Okay, this is a pretty lengthy one. Doing good, thank you. Yes, they did. There was no visual or audio for any of the minors that were brought in today. What was that? Did you guys see that? They're trying to stop someone from coming in. Who are they trying to stop from coming in? I can't either because there's a wall there that looks like it's a cabinet. Okay. Yes, they did, Lisa. No audio or visual for that. So we're actually probably going to catch up with it today, so we may not get to fast forward for long. Who's the guy in the suit back here? Why would they want to hide that Kevin Albert and Proctor were drinking in the police cruiser? Well, maybe because that's not what you're supposed to do as a cop, but why are you trying to hide it so hard? As a juror, if you hear that, can you really honestly unhear that? They could tell you to ignore it, but can you unhear it? I don't think I could. I'm just letting it play because they're hovering near that door again. I want to see what's going on there. The guy in the suit is who has me so nervous. And this one's on alert. This one at the bottom. What did we miss while we were staring at the ceiling fan? You're gonna make us look at it again, aren't you?
Counsel. Exhibit II for ID.
Thank you.
I heard the FBI sat in the front row. That's not the same guy. Maybe different ones. Maybe it's nothing. I'm making nothing into something. Who knows? I know. I'm mad that we didn't get to hear what the niece testified to. So unless that's under seal, we may never know. We might have to do a FOIA request. I thought the O'Keefe family was going on the side. That long bench on
All
the
right, may we have
side.
Sergeant Clark, please?
The front bench I'm talking about is where Karen's dad sits. No worries. Thank you. Let's see what Bev's decision was. Thank you.
Yes.
Again, we're back with Sergeant Zachary Clark, crime scene
Sir, when
investigator.
you went with Michael Proctor to interview Colin Albert, you knew that the case originated on January 29th of 2022?
I was aware of that.
And the date that you conducted that interview was July 18th of 2023?
That's correct.
Not much because the first, hi Mila, the first witness was the niece and there was no visual or audio for that. That was, we couldn't see or hear. And there's been a lot of sidebars. So honestly, we honestly haven't got much far into it.
Did you ever ask Michael Proctor why
think
he
it's
waited a year and a
intimidation?
half to interview Colin
Yeah.
Albert?
I did not.
Once that interview was concluded, one of the two of you had to write a report to document what Colin Albert had told you, correct?
That's correct.
And Michael Proctor, as the lead investigator, was the one to write the report, correct?
Michael Proctor wrote that report.
You did not write it.
Correct.
He chose the language to use in that report, correct?
Correct.
And you weren't standing over him while he was typing it up, correct?
Correct.
And he wrote that report to his supervisor without running every word by you, correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever review that report to check whether it was accurate?
Not before it was published.
And the only other thing I have for you, sir, is you were called to photograph evidence on
Mila's
February
here.
1st. Were you ever asked to go to 34 Fairview Road on February 8th to photograph and document evidence supposedly found on that day?
No, I was not.
Were you ever asked to go to 34 Fairview Road to document any evidence on February 10th?
He's not on the prosecution's list to be called, but the defense could still call him.
No, I wasn't.
How about February 11th?
No, sir.
And then on February 18th, nearly 3 weeks after January 29th, did anybody contact you to ask you to come out and photograph and document evidence that was supposedly found 3 weeks later?
Ask it differently, Mr.
Yes.
Netti.
Supposedly.
Were you called out to 34 Fairview Road on February 18th of 2022 to photograph and document anything?
February 1st was the only date I was called to 34 Fairview, sir.
So the answer to my question is no,
It's a good
correct?
question. I
correct.
don't know the answer though.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any follow-up, Mr. Lally? Sorry?
No redirect.
Okay.
I see right through her.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, folks.
How many people think she's going to be a judge after this case?
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth called Evan Brent to the stand.
Evan Brent is our next witness. Oh, when you tap, it gives different things now.
Excuse me.
It gives the hearts, the cheers, and what looks like rave lights.
So this way, the other side of the court adjourned the case down here to the truth.
Good afternoon, Patricia. How are you?
Yes.
No. Currently, this is still the prosecution's case. They have yet to rest. This is their witness. This is Evan Brent.
Good morning.
I haven't
All right,
noticed
go right
it.
ahead, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good
I
morning,
don't know what
sir.
that means.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Yeah.
My name is Evan Brent, B-R-E-N-T.
Ken, if
And
your
what do you do
sister
for work,
works
sir?
here,
I work for the Massachusetts State Police
And how long have you been a trooper with the Massachusetts State Police?
for just under 8 years.
to be honest, Heather, no, you haven't, because the first witness was Denise, and we couldn't hear or see that. And the other witness was just the crime scene photographer. No, honestly, not really nothing. This is our second witness.
In what
The
capacity
third,
do you
but-
currently work with the State Police?
Currently, I am a sergeant and I am assigned to the Leominster Barracks.
Now, going back to when you initially joined the State Police, did you undergo any training?
Yes, I did.
You're welcome.
And could you please describe for the jury, generally speaking, what that training consisted of?
I went to the State Police Academy in New Braintree. I attended the 83rd Recruit Training Troop from August
Hopefully that'll keep you awake
2017 until January of 2018. And I learned about different topics that you would expect to learn about at an academy, such as criminal law and procedure and motor vehicle law, to name a few.
Now, when you joined the State Police, where were you initially assigned?
I was initially assigned to the Holden Barracks
And how long were you at that barracks?
for about 3 or 4 months.
And where did you go from there?
I went to the Charlton Barracks
And how long were you in Charlton?
for a little over a year.
And then following Charlton, where did you go from there?
I went to a unit called Crime Scene Services.
Now, what specialized training did you receive in relation to that work with the Crime Scene Services Section unit?
New members assigned to crime scene undergo a progressive training program that consists of completing a series of modules, each of which has assigned readings and a written test for each one. It moves on to assisting in the lab and then eventually assisting in the field. There's additional assigned readings, classroom instruction, and it concludes with a series of competency tests that must be passed before you are assigned your own casework.
Now, when you're working for the Crime Scene Services Section, how are assignments, or how are you assigned to a particular case or investigation?
As cases come in, if you're on call, you would own that case if it's your call day, if something comes into the lab or something you need to respond to.
And how long do those on-call periods typically last for?
Typically, when I was there in Maynard, it was 24 hours. So you would own a day starting at 7 in the morning and it would go all the way until 7 the next morning.
Now, how big of an area does that particular unit, the Crime Scene Services Section, how big of an area does it cover?
The Maynard lab covers somewhere between, I think, 50 and 55 different municipalities.
Now, sir, were you working with the State Police Crime Scene Services Section on February 3rd of 2022?
Yes, I was.
And where were you requested to
Sue, did I just see you come in? How you been?
go on that date?
I was requested to respond to an address in Canton.
And do you recall what that address was?
Welcome back.
It was 34 Fairview.
And approximately what time did you arrive at that location on Fairview Road?
It was about 9:45 in the morning.
And who did you meet upon your arrival there?
I met with several members of the State Police Detective Unit for Norfolk County.
And do you recall specifically who those members of the State Police Detective Unit were?
Yes, there was Lieutenant Tully, Sergeant Buchanan, Trooper Proctor, Trooper DeChico, and Trooper Moore.
And when you arrived there, what were you asked to document on that occasion?
There was a search effort digging through some snowbanks that they were looking for some items. They wanted me to document it with photography.
Now, during that search effort, were items located and recovered?
Yes.
Now, can you describe for the jury the process of item recovery that you observed there on that day?
So once an item was excavated, I would be alerted. I would come over, I would document the item in its place, and then one of the detectives would use a gloved hand, and that item would be bagged and documented on the bag.
Was that the same with respect to each item that was photographed by you and then bagged by the State Police Detective Unit?
Yes.
Now, if I could just ask you, if you could expound a little, when you say excavated, what do you mean by that? What did you see being done that day?
They were digging with shovels.
Clearly, they're
And as
beyond
far
the
as
doors.
the items that were recovered, do you recall where they were in relation to the
Right.
snow pile and the ground itself?
Some were on top of the snow, so there was some significant snow melt. I think that day it was raining out and it was much warmer than it was the previous 3 days. So some had been revealed by this melted snow, so they were on top. Others were under a foot and a half of snow.
Now, what kind of instruments or tools do you use in addition to your camera when you're photographing items?
So items of interest would be documented with a scale, so that way it would show how big the item is.
And why is it that you use a scale as far as photographs are concerned when it comes to certain items?
Because some of the photos, you wouldn't be able to tell how big the item is or proportionally what it looks like. So it has the scales, just a little ruler that shows exactly how big the item is.
Now-
Exactly, Kat, you said it.
Now, sir, upon your completion of documenting recovery of items at Fairview Road, were you asked to go anywhere else?
Yes, I was.
And where were you asked to go?
I was asked to go to and address 1 Meadows Road.
And who went with you there?
Trooper Proctor.
And once there, what were you asked to document or memorialize at that secondary location of 1 Meadows Ave?
There was a vehicle in the driveway that he wanted me to document.
And was that a Chevrolet Traverse, is that correct?
Yes.
And were you asked to document anything else with respect to the home adjacent to that driveway?
There was a camera up above the garage that he had pointed out, so I just documented that as well.
Thank you. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I need to pull those up again. Is it true that one of them
You're showing you a disc. Do you recognize that?
was not
Yes.
a white
So what do you
soul?
recognize that to be?
It's a disc of crime scene photos.
And the photos on that disc, are those the photos that you took at each of those respective locations on February 3rd, both 34 Fairview and 1 Meadows Ave?
Yes.
And what's contained on that disc and those photos, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed at each of those respective locations that day?
Yes, it is.
Wait, is this the guy that was standing back there in the suit?
Your Honor, Colin will seek to introduce him as an exhibit.
And same caveat, as long as that's all that's on that disc, we have no objection.
Okay.
Not much brandy, honestly.
Exhibit 135.
Yeah, it's hilarious how that happens. The former chief of police drives by and happens to see a piece of the tail light that should have been buried under the snow.
And Your Honor, may I approach the witness again?
Yes.
Thank you, Renee. You know, your kitty was here. She just took off, I guess. Thank you so much, Renee.
Sir, I'm handing you a series of 7 photographs. Do you recognize generally what's depicted in those 7 photographs?
I've never done any of the campaign stuff, and I know they have a campaign going on. I just looked at it, and it wants me to put a goal of an item that costs 1,400 coins. I'm not doing that. Screw that. That's just too much.
Yes,
And in the first 5 of those
Me
photographs,
too.
is that essentially taking photographs as you walk around the Chevrolet Traverse in the driveway that day?
yes, that is correct.
And the last 2 were of the garage doors at One Meadows Ave, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'll come over to see if you can do this in advance at the next.
She's typical Bev, sustaining everything and denying a sidebar, then having to do a sidebar. Yeah.
Okay.
Literally, like her resting setting is irritated all the time. That's her natural setting, is irritated.
Exhibit 136.
Yep. The evidence 101 that we
Your Honor,
have.
with court's permission, may I publish those photographs in relatively short fashion with the jury?
Sure.
The Stop and Shop bag, the leaf blower, and the red Solo cups. Can't pity at its finest.
Ms. Gilman, if I could have photograph 7749. And Trooper, just briefly, what are we looking at in this photograph?
It's a nice house.
The front entrance to that address, One Meadows.
Ms. Gilman, 7752. And Trooper, same question, what are we looking at here?
That was the vehicle in question.
Let's be honest. I think I've got everybody beat with my RBF.
And if you could, Trooper, just describe sort of perspective-wise what portion of the vehicle we're looking at in this photograph.
So we are looking at an angle view of a Chevy Traverse, the back of the vehicle, and part of the driver's side.
And Ms. Gilman, 7758. And what part of the vehicle does this depict, Trooper?
The rear of the vehicle.
And Ms. Gilman, 7759. And again, Trooper, what portion of the vehicle in this photograph?
It's going to be an angle view of the rear of the vehicle and the passenger side.
And Ms. Gilman, 7769. And again, Trooper, what portion of the vehicle?
The passenger side.
And Ms. Gilman, 7769. And again, Trooper, what portion of the vehicle in this photograph?
This is the front of the vehicle.
And Ms. Gilman, 7771.
100%.
Again, Trooper, what are we looking at in this photograph?
An angle view of the front of the vehicle and the driver's side.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 7777. And again, Trooper, what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the driver's side rear quarter panel.
And Ms. Gilman, 7791. Now, you also took photographs of the garage doors at One Meadows Ave, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how many garage doors did you observe there that day?
2 garage doors.
And which of the 2 was this?
This is going to be the right garage door.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 7795. And which of the 2 garage doors is this, Trooper?
This will be the left garage door.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilman, thank you very much. You can take those down. Now, Trooper Brent, from your observations of those photographs and your observations personally, visually on scene February 3rd at One Meadows Ave, what damage did you observe to the garage doors of that residence?
I did not observe any damage to them.
And again, both from your view of those photographs and your in-person visual observations of the Chevy Traverse from all angles on that date of February 3rd, what damage did you observe to that Chevy Traverse?
I observed no visible damage.
Thank you, sir. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any questions, Ms. Giannetti?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Janice, I'm a little confused because I didn't recognize that man. I don't know. Okay, that was the prosecution. That's why we didn't recognize him.
Good morning, Trooper.
Morning, sir.
To be clear, the
That
Chevy
was John's car,
Traverse
yeah?
that you photographed at One Meadows, you did so on February 3rd of 2022, correct?
You're welcome.
Yes, sir.
And you realized at the time that was 5 days prior to the incident in question, which was January 29th of 2022?
5 days after, not prior.
Trust me, Kathy, I've got a stack that I've already saved, so I'll be watching them all.
Did I say prior?
You did.
Thank you for correcting me, because you are right. You were photographing it 5 days after January 29th, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's fair to say, sir, that your earliest involvement in the case was February 3rd of 2022, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you don't know, and you didn't know at the time, who had access to that traverse during those 5 days, correct?
That is correct.
Now, as of February 3rd of 2022, you, I believe, testified you were part of the crime scene services section of the Massachusetts State Police, correct?
Yes, sir.
You met former Trooper Michael Proctor on February 3rd at 34 Fairview Road in Canton.
Yes, I did.
At the time, did you know you were at the home of a Boston police officer named Brian Albert?
I did not.
And February 3rd was the first and only time that you responded to 34 Fairview Road, correct?
That is correct.
With regard to anything that you saw on the lawn or on the snow that day, you have no personal knowledge as to how any of those items got there, correct?
I do not.
And 5 days after January 29th, you had no personal knowledge at the time of who had access to that front lawn during those 5 days, correct?
That is correct.
You had no information that a guard had ever been posted near that lawn?
Not that I'm aware of.
And when you got there, there was no crime scene tape, correct?
No, there was not.
There was no tent?
No.
Other than the police officers standing there on February 3rd, the lawn was open to anyone who wanted to look at it, just like any other lawn on the street, right?
I'm unaware of that. I don't know.
Right, Mama Bear?
Now, in terms of your actions that day in documenting the scene with photographs, you did not write a report on what you saw and what you photographed, correct?
I took notes of what I saw and what I photographed.
Michael Proctor was the one to write the report in which he reported that you were the photographer on scene, correct?
I don't know what Michael Proctor did for a report, so I can't testify to that.
Okay, but you didn't write a report.
I wrote a report of what I did, showing up at the scene and taking photos, and then submitting those photos to the Norfolk County Detectives Unit.
You knew at the time that Michael Proctor was the lead investigator on that case, correct?
Yes, I did.
And with regard to other dates in February, on February 8th of 2022, were you asked to go back to 34 Fairview Road to document and photograph anything found on that day?
I do not believe so, no.
What about February 10th?
No.
February 11th?
Again, my only involvement was on February 3rd.
So that means that on February 18th, nearly 3 weeks after January 29th, you were not asked to go back to 34 Fairview to document or photograph anything on the lawn that day, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing further, sir. Thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Lally?
Very briefly.
Okay.
Just for clarity, Trooper Brent, you did write a report in relation to your response documentation on February 3rd, 2022, correct?
That is correct.
And you mentioned that you also took notes, is that correct?
That is correct.
What did those notes entail?
It detailed several items that were collected, my response times, and who else was there on scene.
Now, when you were there on scene, as far as 34 Fairview on February 3rd, What did you observe as far as these, you mentioned that the weather had gotten warmer, some snow had melted. What did you observe specifically as far as the snow accumulation on that front lawn area in the area of the flagpole of 34 Fairview?
Objection beyond the scope.
Sustained. Sustained.
As far as these items, again, when they were recovered, several of these items were under how much snow?
I would estimate about, there was one particular item that was about a foot and a half under the snow.
Nothing further.
Nothing on that.
All right. All right, Trooper, you are all set, sir. Thank you.
Let's
Who
keep
is the
it moving.
Commonwealth's next witness?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth called Brian Gallerani to the stand.
Okay.
We'll have to wait for him to spell his last name.
Your Honor, as this witness is approaching, can I just move into evidence clips 19 and 20 that were previously played for the jury?
Yes.
Thank you.
Exhibit 137.
It took me a minute to realize what you were talking about, and then I saw it. Or leaf blowers.
You solemnly swear the evidence given before the jury in the case there bear true truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
That's the guy that was standing in the back.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and spell your last name for the court?
Brian Gallerani, Gallerani.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm currently employed as a sergeant for the Needham Police Department,
And how long in total have you been a member of the Needham Police Department?
19 years.
And how long have you held the rank of sergeant?
2 years, it'll be 2 years in July.
Now, prior to holding the rank of sergeant with the Needham Police Department, what did you do before that at the Needham Police?
I was a detective for 8 years.
Now, over the course of your work as a detective with the Needham Police Department, what training have you received in regard to collection of biological samples?
I've been certified by the Mass State Police since 2015 in collecting DNA.
Did he?
Now, can you explain just briefly to the jury sort of what that process of certification entails, or how did you become certified?
Excuse me. So specifically, I was certified in DNA buccal swab, which is the process of obtaining cells suitable for comparison, DNA comparison, by swabbing a person's cheek, cells, and gums.
And that certification that you received, is that up to date at this point?
It is.
Now, at some point on January 16th of 2024, did you have occasion to collect buccal swabs or samples in relation to this case?
I did.
And before I get to that, just briefly, as far as with your work as a Needham Police detective and or sergeant, you had no involvement with any investigation either by the Canton Police or the State Police in relation to any incident in the town of Canton, correct?
Correct.
Now, with respect to that date of January 16th, where did you go?
I went to Norfolk County DA's office in Canton.
No, we start delayed so we could fast forward. It's called patience with parameters.
And who did you meet with, or who did you collect samples from on that occasion?
I collected samples from Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan.
And again, briefly, can you explain to the jury the process of that collection of samples from Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor?
So I swabbed the inside of their mouths with a cotton swab. I let it air dry, put it in the kit, sealed it, and photographed it.
And then following your collection, what did you do with those collections once you had them?
I brought that back to the Needham Police Department and entered it into the evidence locker.
And as far as that collection process that you were describing, did you do that in conformity with the training and the certification that you referenced earlier?
I did.
Now, with reference to those items, at some point were you informed that those items were to be transferred or transported to a Bodie Technology Lab in Lorton, Virginia?
Yes.
And were there any specific instructions as far as shipping that you received from the lab in reference to those items?
There were.
And did you comply with those instructions as far as how those items were shipped from the Needham Police Department to the Bodie Lab in Virginia?
Yep.
Hi, happy Wednesday, Crystal.
Yes.
I
I have nothing
yield.
further. Thank you.
Any questions from the defense?
Very briefly, Judge. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Were you ever asked
Sickness.
to do any buccal swabs of Chief Berkowitz of the Canton Police Department?
Thank you, Audra.
I'll allow that.
No,
Were you ever asked to do any buccal swabs of Detective Kevin Albert of the Canton Police Department?
no,
Were you ever asked to do any buccal swabs of Lieutenant Brian Tully of the Massachusetts State Police?
no.
Thank you. I'm not going to.
Anything, Mr. Lally?
No, you're.
I think those few answers that a lot more than the other questions.
All right, thank you very much, Sergeant. You're all set.
Thank you.
Next witness for the Commonwealth?
Commonwealth calls Maureen Hartnett.
They're just knocking them out today. I know, I'm not used to it. Got me kind of paranoid. We sure are.
Follow me, ma'am.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give in the court and jury in the case of hearing the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You can sit or stand wherever you're comfortable. Just please keep your voice up, okay?
Yes.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Brennan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the jury and offer the spelling of your last name?
My name is Maureen Hartnett, Hartnett.
Could you tell us where you presently work?
I work at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
Before you began working at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory, did you receive any education, any further schooling after high school?
Yes, I did.
Could you share that with us?
I have a bachelor's degree in biology from Bridgewater State University and a master's degree in forensic science from the University of New Haven.
After you graduated with your master's, did you begin working at the crime laboratory or did you work somewhere else before?
I began working at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
How long have you worked at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory for?
I've worked there in total approximately 9 years.
Can you give us a basic understanding of how the crime laboratory you work at is broken down, the different departments and what you do?
There are various units within the laboratory. There is the criminalistics unit, which is the unit I work for, the DNA unit, the Office of Alcohol Testing, the Arson and Trace unit, and each of those units is comprised of civilian workers. And there's also portions of the laboratory that are made up of sworn or troopers that work for Crime Scene Services section as well as the Firearms Identification section.
Would you consider your role a civilian worker or are you a Massachusetts State Police trooper?
I'm a civilian worker.
You mentioned that one of the departments that you work in is the criminalist unit.
The criminalistics unit.
Could you give us a little more detail about what the unit does?
In the criminalistics unit, we examine items of evidence for the possible presence of biological fluids. We conduct trace identification, damage analysis, as well as gunshot residue collections on evidence.
Do different employees do different things in that unit, or do all the employees, are they trained to conduct all of those different type of testing?
There are specific types of analysis that only certain members of the unit will conduct based on the fact that those types of analysis are not requested very often.
Is the unit broken down by level of experience? Are there different roles within the unit based on experience?
Yes, there are.
Could you explain that, how it's broken down, the structure of it for us?
Generally, a training analyst will be a forensic scientist 1, which means they're in training and they're not performing any type of independent casework. Once an analyst is authorized to perform independent casework, they are then a forensic scientist 2. And that above them would be their supervisors, which are forensic scientists 3. And that is specific to the unit. And then as the chain of command goes up, there are additional levels as well.
Do you have a particular level that you've achieved?
Currently, I'm a forensic scientist too in the criminalistics unit and crime scene response unit.
In addition to your education and your master's degree, do you receive any specific training when you enter the unit?
Yes, every analyst will receive generally the same training when they enter the unit. It is written in our protocol, so it is standardized, and that is completed once they enter the unit. It takes approximately 9 to 12 months to complete that training.
Is there any ongoing training involved when you work in the criminals unit?
Yes, as a part of our accreditation, we also receive ongoing education yearly.
You mentioned accreditation. Can you briefly tell the jury what that means as it relates to the unit and the lab?
Accreditation is a voluntary quality assurance program that the laboratory is a part of. And basically their role is to ensure that our protocols, our procedures, our equipment, and our personnel are held to a certain level based in the scientific community.
In your role, do you do all of your testing at the office or in the lab?
As part of the crime scene response unit, I will respond to crime scenes and I will perform some testing and collection at crime scenes as well.
How long have you been involved in the crime scene response unit?
I've been involved with the crime scene response unit the same amount of time I've been in the criminalistics unit, which is approximately a total of 9 years.
As part of crime scene response, do you actively go to an ongoing developing scene, or do you arrive somewhere after the event?
It depends on the circumstances. Oftentimes we are called out to a scene directly after the incident takes place. There are times when we also will examine additional items or additional scenes after the fact.
How many scenes have you responded to as far as crime scene response where you were the person who was in charge?
How are you?
I would say approximately 300.
When you are asked to or assigned to go to a scene, a crime scene, whether it's active or whether it's later in time, do you make an assessment when you get there, or is there a plan developed before you leave your office and get to the scene?
I'm sorry, can you be more specific?
Sure. How do you decide what you're going to do before you get there?
Generally, when I arrive on scene, I get a brief description of what they think may have occurred. Of course. I will take an overall sketch and diagram of the scene, and I also take some notes of the scene before I perform any type of testing or collection.
When you arrive at a scene and you start engaging in an analysis and determine whether you want to do testing, are you allowed to use your own independent judgment?
Yes, I use my training and experience to determine what items I would like to test and what items I would like to collect.
Is there ever any input by
Don't forget the IMOs, guys.
whatever law enforcement team or officer is at the response scene?
Yes, there is.
You mentioned that you've been to a number of crime scene responses. I want to ask you specifically about a response on February 2nd, 2022. Do you remember that?
May I check the date on that?
With the court's permission, please.
Yes.
Thank you. So I responded to a crime scene on February 1st of 2022.
My apologies. Where did you go on February 1st, 2022?
I was dispatched to the Canton Police Station in their garage area.
When you went to the Canton Police Department, did anybody else from your lab go with you?
And did they happen to show up via teleport?
There was a crime scene services trooper that also responded at the same time, but there was no additional crime scene responder from my unit that responded.
Did you arrive at the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I did.
Is there a garage that you were directed to?
Yes, I was.
When you arrived at the garage, which sometimes may be referred to as a Sally Port area, were there any other people there when you arrived?
There were Massachusetts State Police troopers as well as some Canton police officers.
Did you know who they were?
I did know who the Massachusetts State Police trooper was, yes.
Okay. Was
Right.
Michael Proctor there?
Yes, he was.
Was Trooper Dunn there?
Yes, he was.
Was Trooper Clark there?
Yes.
You mentioned Canton Police Department officers. Do you know Lieutenant Gallagher?
Yes, I did have an interaction with Lieutenant Gallagher as well.
When you got there, did you have a chance to look at an item?
Yes,
Tell us what your focus was on, what type of item?
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And was there a black Lexus SUV?
Yes,
As you were observing and analyzing the item, did you see whether anybody was taking photographs?
yes,
When there's a person taking photographs, do you ever have any input or direct
Thank you,
them? Or do they
Susan.
do that totally independent of you?
after they're done doing what they're required to do, I will ask them to take specific photographs because I do not perform that function at a crime scene.
When you first arrived, did you have a chance to walk around the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Did you observe the vehicle from standing behind it, looking at the back of it?
Yes, I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Did she say I guess? I could have misheard.
I'm handing you a document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
This is the rear of the black Lexus SUV.
Does that photograph, does it appear to be substantially accurate to what you saw that
No, I'm talking about the judge. When he said, may I approach?
day?
Yes, it is.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
May I approach again?
Yes.
I would move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
I know we're not going to get to fast forward very far.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show P-145.
Okay.
Ms. Hartnett, is that what you saw when you arrived?
Yes, it is.
Did anything stand out to you when you first looked at the back of that Lexus?
I noticed there was some damage to the rear passenger area of the vehicle.
Take that down, please. Did you have a chance to walk around and look at the vehicle from the driver's side of the vehicle, the left side?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
That is, yeah. And the two people that teleported in there too.
And I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
This is the driver's side of the Lexus.
Did the Lexus appear to you the same as it does in that photograph?
Yes.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction?
Yes.
All right, move this into evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
I think he was trying to wake everybody up with that.
With the court's permission, I'd ask to show the jury P-144.
Okay.
Could you describe what you saw, ma'am?
Yes, so this is the driver's side of the black Lexus.
Thank you. You can take that down. Did you get a closer look from the right side of the Lexus to pay detail or attention to what you described from the back view that stood out to you?
Are you referring to the damaged area?
I am.
Yes, so I did take notes of that area and as well as had additional photographs taken of that area.
May I approach you?
Yeah, they do. Much more convenient that way.
I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is it?
This is a close-up photograph of the rear passenger side tail light area.
Does that photo depict what you saw that day?
Yes, it does.
Is it a fair and accurate depiction?
Yes.
With the court's permission, I'd like to use that as an exhibit.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Exhibit 140?
May I show it to the jury, Your Honor?
Yes.
P-161, please. Could you describe what you saw?
Yes, that is the rear passenger tail light of the vehicle.
Is that how it appeared when you first walked in that day?
Yes, it is.
You can take that down, thank you. When you examine an item like a car, do you take any type of efforts to protect from contamination?
Yes.
What do you do?
Before processing or touching any item of evidence, I'll put on gloves. I use disposable instruments whenever possible, or if I need to use reusable instruments, I will spray them with a 10% bleach solution prior to use. I also change gloves often while I'm examining a vehicle and keep my notes and my pens that I'm writing my notes with. I don't put on gloves when I touch those, and then when I go back to examining the vehicle, I will then re-put on gloves to protect the evidence.
If you see something of note, something that stands out to you, do you have any way of marking the item?
Yes, I take diagrams at the scene and note on my diagrams anything of note. And as I had said, if there's anything that I also want close-up photographs, then I will request the crime scene services trooper who's assigned to crime scene to take those photographs.
Do you ever put any type of markers on the item itself?
Yes, generally I will mark the items with either a letter or a number so that I'm able to refer back to them both in my notes, and I'm able to refer to them when I look at the photos.
When you mark different items or observations that you make, do you give a specific number to each item for to memorialize it?
Yes, I either use a lettering system or a numbering system.
And how do you memorialize it? Do you put it in writing?
Yes.
What do you do?
On my diagram, I will refer to something, for example, as letter A, and then I'll also mark that item using a marker on the item of evidence with the same letter so that I can connect and associate the photograph with my notes and anything that I collect.
Thank you. My understanding was Karen.
As well.
She still
In
looks
addition
sick.
to the broken tail light that we just looked at, did you make observation of any other things? And I'm just asking generally, not asking you to specify.
Yes.
Were there other things that stood out to you?
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you take any swabs, to see if there was any biological evidence?
Yes, I did.
Where did you take swabs from as far as trace for blood?
I screened for blood on various areas of the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And what was the results?
Those were negative.
What does negative mean?
It means that there was no blood present in that area, or if there was, it was below the level of detection of our test.
Did you make any observations where you saw items or marks of interest?
Yes.
I want to ask you about any observations you made of the back bumper. Was there anything significant that you saw relative to the back bumper of that vehicle?
Yes.
And share with us what you saw.
There were scratches on the bumper as well as apparent pieces of glass on the bumper.
When you saw what you believe to be pieces of glass on the...
So you mean to tell me that after that truck or after that SUV was put on a tow truck and brought all the way there and kept in the garage, the glass stayed on it from the crime scene on the bumper through all that traveling? No.
Back bumper, what is the process you follow?
I gave those an identifying letter. I noted those items in my diagram, and then I eventually collected those items.
How do you collect them?
Thank you, Piper.
I would have used either the disposable tweezers or tweezers that were cleaned with a 10% bleach solution.
After you collect the items, for example, glass on the back bumper, what do you do with that?
Magic.
In that moment or later on?
Take us through from the moment you have it till the end.
So I would put those pieces of glass into a glassine envelope, which are then packaged in a larger manila envelope. They are sealed and dated and initialed with my dates and initials. Eventually, when I return to the lab, those pieces are given an item number and then secured in our cold room.
Is each piece of evidence given a separate item number?
Yes.
As far as the entire case, your entire response, not the separate pieces of evidence you may find, is it assigned a particular number or a case number?
Yes, each case will get a larger case number, and then each item within that case gets an individual item number, so that item can be tracked throughout the lab.
Do you remember from your memory what the case number of this investigation as far as your response was?
Yes.
Could you share that with us?
The case number assigned to this in the laboratory information system was 22-2184.
I want to go back to the glass in the bumper. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
You mean the glass on the bumper that happened to stay there throughout towing and several days and blizzard weather? Yeah. What I think about the case so far is that this woman has been framed and she is innocent and this case needs to be thrown out. It had to be glued. Makes zero sense. You saw the high wind.
I'm showing you a photograph. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes.
And could you generally describe what you see?
This is a close-up photograph of the apparent glass on the bumper of the vehicle.
Maybe when Proctor was around the back of that vehicle, you know, something was broken, taken, and that's why the glass was still there.
Can we listen to evidence, please? No objection, Your Honor.
He laughed and said,
141?
thank you, right?
Court's permission, I'd like to show P-167 to the jury.
Thank you.
There are 2
That's
pointers in
exactly
front
how
of
I
you.
think it got there.
Would you mind pointing out for the jury what stood out to you? And Ms. Gilman, could we get a little bit of a close-up on that bumper, please?
Are you kidding?
So I can see one of the, it's a little difficult to see, but I do see one of the larger pieces of apparent glass right here. Would it be better if I use this one?
Could you?
It's like little pieces of
So
salt.
this piece here is a larger apparent piece of glass. I think that was the largest one that I saw.
That's
And
all
those
not
two
going to
white
stay.
stickers, could you tell us what those are?
This sticker, this sticker here is marking where the apparent pieces of glass are.
Is there another sticker above, or is that?
I'm
just a
not
different
sure, if you could close up, I'm not sure what that is. Yes, so that is another sticker, and
Are you
next to that
kidding me?
sticker are additional pieces of glass.
Those items to the right of that picture, are those pieces of glass?
Yes, I would say that's an apparent piece of glass here, and this one.
Could you
Apparent
just
piece of
go
glass.
down to the bottom part again, please? Thank you, Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Did you collect what appeared to be items of glass?
Yes, I did.
Were they assigned a particular number?
Yes.
Do you know that number offhand,
I would have to refer to my notes.
with the court's permission?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please.
Those items were given the item number 3-3.
Did you focus on the right rear side of the vehicle beyond the broken taillight?
Yes.
Did you notice any damage, any scratches to the right quarter panel or the right side of that Lexus?
Yes, I did. I noticed some scratches as well as a dent in the rear door in that same area.
Let's start with the
Dent in the
scratches
rear
first. When
door?
you notice scratches, is there a way you marked them?
Yes, I would have given them a letter.
And did you do that?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
TikTok shop is great.
Showing you a photograph. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What does it depict?
It is a close-up photograph of one of the scratches on the right rear area of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what you saw that day?
Yes.
All right, move this into evidence, please. No objection, Your Honor.
All right.
You know, if those glass pieces were bigger, that would hold more weight with me that they stayed on the vehicle when being towed in. But the fact that they're so damn tiny, they're like little slivers. There's no way a leaf blower could have blown those away. Like what I did there?
142.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury P-172.
Okay.
That they make sure to let us know it was a blizzard.
Could we close up just a little more, Ms. Gilman? Thank you. Starting at the
You did it,
bottom,
Parker.
what is that, ma'am?
That is a close-up of the scratches that I noted in that area.
Could you zoom out again, please, Ms. Gilman? Is that on the back bumper or the right quarter panel?
I believe it's on the right bumper. It's a little difficult to make out in that photo.
Yes.
Could you zoom in again and move up just a little higher, Ms. Gilman?
I
Thank you.
wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if they said that.
You have another sticker on the top.
Yes, I do.
Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is an apparent hair that I noted in that area.
So that doesn't.
Okay, so now you expect us to believe that a hair stuck to the bumper too. Are you serious right now?
Made a scratch, that's something entirely separate and different.
That's something different, correct?
We'll get to that later. I just wanted to point out that
You're
it's
right.
not a scratch. Now, you mentioned that you saw a scratch. Was it a singular scratch or a number of scratches? Could you zoom in, please, Ms. Gilman?
It was a couple of scratches.
Is there a number you designate if it's not a physical item, if it's something like a scratch, or the designations just for actual physical items?
I use a designation for both observations as well as physical items.
Would there be a number for the scratches?
Yes, well, there's a letter, yes.
Do you know what that letter is?
Yes, I believe it's D.
D. Okay, thank you. Take that down, please, Ms. Gilman. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I can't believe that they expect us to believe that those tiny slivers of glass stayed there and a hair.
Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes.
What is it?
That is damage that I noted on the rear trunk door of the vehicle.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
Yes.
When you say damage, what type of damage did you notice?
There was some scratches as well as a dent.
I'd like to move this to evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
In my opinion, Kathy, I would think they would.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show the jury P176.
When you make contact with another vehicle, no matter how quickly, isn't it though?
Can we zoom in just a
You
little
said
bit
that
more,
perfectly.
please? You told us that you saw both dent and scratches. Starting with the scratches with the pointer on the TV to your right, could you show us where you saw further scratches?
So the scratches are up above, and then down here there's chipped paint and a dent.
And where is the dent in relation to the scratches?
Just below it.
Could we zoom in a little more if we could, Ms. Gilman, please?
And you're saying this is on the bumper on the opposite side where they're claiming she hit John? And there's all the fragments of the light still intact?
Can you see in this photograph the dent that you saw?
Yes, I was referring to this area here as a dent in my observations.
Thank you. You can take that down, please.
They are still saying that that car is what struck John.
You mentioned the hair. I'm going to ask you some questions. How many pieces of hair did you find attached to that Lexus?
I found one apparent piece of hair on the Lexus.
Again, I want to make sure I can't stress this enough. That was after it was brought into the Sally Port via tow. And it just stayed there along with the tiny shards of glass.
Was there a designation number
No.
for the hair that you found?
Yes.
Do you remember what that number is?
I used the letter A for that particular item.
Did you say letter A, ma'am?
Yes, correct.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I don't either. And I hope the jury sees this the
I'm going to
same
show
way.
you two photographs.
This is outrageous
Can you take a look at the first photograph, please?
and asinine.
Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, I do.
And what's in that photograph?
This is a photograph of the apparent piece of hair I noted on the rear area.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw that day?
Yes.
Turn to the second photograph, please. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is an additional photo of the apparent hair on the vehicle.
Both photographs.
The fact that it's heated makes this even more bizarre. No, I cannot believe any of this. So in the middle of a blizzard, not only did her car move around, it went places after this, and happened to have little fragments, pieces of glass on the bumper from the taillight that could have been blown away with a leaf blower. And one single hair that was frozen to the bumper that wouldn't have blown away in the middle of a blizzard On the back of a tow truck. Yes. That's my understanding, is it's under the shenanigans.
Yes,
In the second photograph, is that a fair and accurate depiction of what you saw?
yes.
I'd like to move these two photographs into
The
evidence.
hair that, you know, at this point, I think we need to make that hair a sticker in its own because damn, I'm not really going to do that. But the hair that can withstand a blizzard and a heated garage.
Your Honor.
Is A and B. 144A and 144B.
I believe it was planted too. There's no other way for me to see it, honestly.
With the court's permission, I'd like to show P173 to the jury.
It's an insult to our intelligence otherwise, and they're insulting our intelligence.
To get in as close as
Thank you,
possible, Ms.
Crystal.
Kinley. Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And can you share with us what you saw?
This is a close-up photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
I can't even with
What
her.
did you-
Hold on. That or that? That teeny tiny little tiny hair. I hope the jury isn't buying this. If it's that one, look at how small that is. And that just stayed frozen to the vehicle in a heated garage after being towed through town during a blizzard. It's like the little engine that could, except it's a hair.
What did you do when you saw that? What you
What do you mean, Jody? We've been here.
thought to be a piece of hair?
I marked it with the tape. I designated it as letter A, and then I asked the crime scene services trooper to take a photograph of it.
Did you try to preserve it in any way?
Yes, I did.
Tell us how you preserved that apparent piece of hair.
I collected that hair with either disposable tweezers or tweezers that had been bleached with a 10% bleach solution. I put them in a
That's at
glassine
10:30.
envelope and then put them in a larger manila envelope. In a larger manila envelope.
What happens to that larger manila envelope?
I was here shortly after 10:30 before 11 Central Time, which is my normally scheduled time.
It is returned back to the lab. It is submitted under the same case number and given its own individual item number.
Did you bring it personally back to the lab?
Yes, I did.
When you brought it back to the lab, do you remember where you brought it when you got back to the lab?
After it was entered into the computer system, I then sealed it, I initialed and dated it, and then I would transfer it to the crime scene response holding area in our cold storage room.
When you
My mind's
pass it
still
along,
blown.
is it to protect it in evidence, or is it for a purpose of further testing?
At that point, it's just to store it in evidence, and then it will make its way into whatever unit needs the piece of evidence first.
And you did all that with that piece of evidence?
Yes, I did.
I'd like to show the second photograph that you identified. I believe it's P165.
I really should have made that secondhand embarrassment sticker. But
You
see, this
recognize that
isn't
photo?
this isn't even secondhand embarrassment. This is pure outrage that they're expecting all of us to believe that this hair and those pieces of glass happen to stay there.
Photo?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's an additional photo of the apparent piece of hair on the rear of the vehicle.
In the two different photos, are they taken from the exact same angle?
I believe they're taken from slightly different angles.
And the hair is, could you point that out with the pointer of the hair that you found?
You know what? They could have used the leaf blower to, get rid of the frozen state of the hair.
Yes. This here is the apparent hair.
I cannot believe that they expect us to sit there and buy into what they're saying right here. Aaron, it was a blizzard that day, right?
Debatable.
Okay, well, it was a blizzard, and they happened to find little pieces of glass on the bumper after it was towed into the police sally port, and one hair was frozen to the bumper. So being towed didn't make it blow away. The wind didn't make it blow away. And not only that, it was in a heated sally port. Do you want to see it?
That's questionable with that.
Yeah, they're insulting our intelligence. Yeah, unless he was bent over tying a shoe, I don't see how that's even possible. She sure did. Just when you think that there's nothing else that they could present that makes you question everything that they're trying to present, there's more.
Well,
do you want to come see it?
Yeah.
That's leaving it paused. You could come look at it.
Okay. Let's see. I mean, what you call a blizzard and what I call a blizzard.
No, I'm talking about the hair.
Yeah, okay.
This teeny tiny thing happened to stay frozen to the vehicle between the time that it allegedly struck John and it was driven around and then towed in and it's put in the Sally Port, which is heated. It just managed to stay there the whole time conveniently.
That's questionable.
I have, and there's no way looking at those pictures no.
That's questionable.
Thank you. You can take that down,
There's
please.
more than that. Like, this is.
Are they already done?
Regarding
No.
regarding the damage to the broken taillight, did you have any interest in maintaining that piece of evidence?
Yes, I
Welcome
did.
back.
What did you want to do?
Wait, Catnip, you weren't here? This is the hair that they said was on the bumper. This tiny little hair right here. It was frozen to the bumper. So after Karen struck John and she drove the vehicle around town and it was towed in, put into a heated Sally Port, that hair, when she went there, happened to be frozen to the bumper and stayed there. But not only that, teeny tiny little fragments of glass. What?
I was gonna say, from the timing of everything, there's no way. The wind would have blown off anything from after just a minor.
Thank you. You can take that down, please.
Right? Yep, of one frozen hair on the bumper that you were just staring at. In a heated garage.
Regarding the damage to the
And when things are frozen, what happens when they thaw out? It melts. So technically, it would have ran off the vehicle.
broken taillight, did you have any interest in maintaining that piece of evidence?
Yes,
Correct,
I did.
Kathy,
What
correct.
did you want to do?
I wanted to collect the entire taillight housing.
Why
It's
did you
not
want
her,
to do
Sam.
that?
If there were pieces from the taillight that could be later matched to the taillight, I needed the entire housing to be processed at the lab.
Did you make efforts to try to maintain
They
or
did
remove or
not.
preserve that entire taillight housing?
Yes, I did.
What's a taillight housing?
Excuse me?
What is a taillight housing?
I'm referring to the entire piece, including the back, the glass covering, the light bulb inside. So it's in the entire unit.
Did you attempt to remove that entire unit yourself?
I did.
Were you successful?
No, I was not.
So what did you do?
A Canton police officer that was in the Sally Port at the time offered to help disconnect it with some tools that he had.
Convenient.
Have you ever seen whether there's video that memorialized that entire event?
Yes, there is.
And have you ever watched that video?
Yes, I did.
Does that video show you attempting to remove the housing and then receiving assistance from somebody?
Yes.
When that housing was removed, what happened to it?
I then placed it in a box, I believe I placed it in a paper bag in a box. And then once I brought it back to the lab, I added additional cushion with additional paper to protect it from any further damage.
Were you going to keep that housing or were you going to put that in evidence for other reasons?
That was put into evidence storage for the time being.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Showing you a photograph.
Those.
Do you recognize what's in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a photograph I took of the taillight housing back at the laboratory upon examination.
Is that in substantially the same condition as when you saw it?
Yes.
Any differences whatsoever from when you saw it?
Not that I noticed, no.
Is that photograph fair and accurate of what you saw that day?
Yes.
All right, move this
Drinking
photograph to
glass.
evidence. No objection, Your Honor.
Only a portion of it was found. This much of it.
Exhibit 145.
They never bothered to check the house, see if it came from the house.
Court's permission, I'd show photograph P187 to the jury, please.
Okay.
Thank you for the share, Ash.
Could you tell us what that is?
That is a photo that I took of the taillight housing at the laboratory.
That's after it's obviously removed from the vehicle.
Yes, that's correct.
And that was packaged and preserved?
Yes.
You can take that down, please. Do you have the actual item, the actual housing with you?
I believe it is here, yes.
With the court's permission, I'd ask the witness to be able to open the item, show it to the jury, and then I would move it into evidence.
Okay.
Thank you. If you would you please remove the item from that box?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Do you have gloves available?
I brought gloves, yes.
This is gonna make me use my forehead lines. I've been doing pretty good not using them. But the inner bitch is trying to come out so the forehead lines will too. Or sandwich bags.
You could hold that so the jury can see it. If you could hold it up high, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. If you could return that to the box.
I don't know what they're expecting the
Move this
jury to
item into
see.
evidence, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Maybe the fact that there's no evidence of it hitting a person, in my opinion. Maybe it just wanted us to see the parts where the taillight was busted.
That's the only item in there?
No, he did not object.
There are additional items in that box as well.
I only want to introduce that one item.
Okay, so it's in your bag. You need to take that bag out.
There are also other items in that bag.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Improperly stored of evidence? What?
Yes, why don't you come on in? Actually, Paul, the lunch is here? All right, jurors, the lunch isn't here, so this seems like a good time to take a break. We'll see you in about 50 minutes. Of course.
Okay, jurors, right this way, please. Please rise for the jury.
And this brings us current. Can't fast forward anymore unless I keep pausing it. They're still on lunch. 1:40. So they're about 10 minutes overdue. I know, right? My patience with parameters is wearing out today. Right? They even gave us elevator music. I believe they are a few people too. Well, I showed you the picture of the hair. It was just the only thing you missed was the tiny, tiny pieces of glass that were smaller than a sliver. I missed having patience with parameters, you guys. Just the fact that they expect us to believe that not only did the glass stay there, but so did the hair after her driving around and the vehicle being towed into a heated garage. Maybe they're just testing us. They just want to see if we'll realize it. What's up?
Well, based on things I've dealt with before, the only way that it would have been frozen automatically to it is if it was well below freezing, which nobody would be outside at that point in time anyways. Most cars wouldn't be on the road.
We don't know, Brett. We may not know until after lunch break is over.
To me, there's just no way for the timing for it to work, in my opinion, for a piece of hair, just one piece of hair to stick to a vehicle like that, unless it was already there before a blizzard type.
We're all to the same conclusion.
Yeah. Do you want your cheese curds?
Since they're on lunch, I'm gonna eat my lunch too. He got me cheese curds, so I'm gonna eat them. I can't believe they're making us have elevator music. Keep in mind, you guys, that we don't know whose hair it is yet. Maybe they'll tell us, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll say since it was frozen, they couldn't get any DNA off of it. Who knows? Wouldn't that be something? So she hits a man, a grown man, and all it does is crack her tail light, but it doesn't break the bulb. Explain that to me. You hit a person, wouldn't it break the bulb? I'm not sure. It was too small to see. It looked like a hair from the nether regions to me, honestly.
There's 2 large cheese curds in here.
Can you put it in a bowl or on a plate so I don't have to have the sound of a bag? Looking at the pictures, I can't. There's no way. I wonder what town Higgins moved to in Maine. The camera was moving, so I thought maybe we were almost back. They're running late. My patience with parameters thing is out the window. Exactly. Yeah, they said that he moved to a really small town in Maine. I don't know which town it is, though. I was wondering if it was close to where we lived before. Thank you. I don't know that. I have no idea. Just like they can't explain why his pocket's ripped. I don't know if the defense is going to call him, but he's not on the prosecution list. I believe they do too. Thinking that they could have Proctor's boss there talk for him? No. Polite pass. Not even a polite pass. Screw that. I suck with having patience. I suck. Patience and me don't get along. That fan's going pretty fast. I wonder why it's not shaking. Did you all have your lunch today? They did take the stand in the first trial, but I didn't see it because I haven't gone back to watch it yet, you know, keeping my oath and all. The fact that she just took other items out and just put them to the side. You're making us all lasagna, Heather? What time should I be there? I can't with the water drop sound. With me being on the Mounjaro, my appetite has gone down dramatically. Not just how much I eat, but what I eat. My body doesn't like it. Hey, Aaron. Did you get me a Mountain Dew?
You want a Mountain Dew with ice?
Mm-hmm. Right? The question is, though, will she retire on her own or will she lose her position? Looks like they're back. More wiggling. I do too.